Shalom, my brothers and sisters in Yahuwah Elohim, and welcome to our next adventure in the Book of Jasher. Alright, gang, this is going to get pretty wild tonight, so if you've got a Dead Sea Scrolls book or an Apocryphal book, go ahead and grab it, and we're going to be doing chapters, let me check, 76, 77, and 78 tonight, okay? So grab something to drink and get comfy and get ready, get your crayons out, because this is going to be a ride tonight. There's a lot of things that are going on tonight. Hope everybody's having a good week, or at least had a good weekend coming into the week. So I pray that you have a good week too. Alright, gang, let's get started this evening. You grab a drink real quick. Okay, ready? The Book of Jasher, chapter 76. Moses, the son of Amram, was still king in the land of Cush in those days, and he prospered in his kingdom. He conducted the government of the children of Cush in justice, in righteousness, and integrity. And all the children of Cush loved Moses all the days that he reigned over them, and all the inhabitants of the land of Cush were greatly afraid of him. In the 40th year of the reign of Moses over Cush, Moses was sitting on the royal throne, while Adoniah the queen was before him, and all the nobles were sitting around him. And Adoniah the queen said before the king and the princes, "What is this thing which you, the children of Cush, have done for this long time? Certainly you know that for 40 years that this man has reigned over Cush, he has not approached me, nor has he served the gods of the children of Cush. Now therefore hear, O ye children of Cush, and let this man no more reign over you, as he is not of our people. Behold, Menacrus, my son is grown up. Let him reign over you, for it is better for you to serve the son of your Lord than to serve a stranger, a slave of the king of Egypt." And all the people and nobles of the children of Cush heard the words which Adoniah the queen had spoken in their ears. All the people were preparing until the evening, and in the morning they rose up early and made Menacrus, the son of Kikianus, king over them. All the children of Cush were afraid to stretch forth their hand against Moses, for the Elohim was with Moses. And the children of Cush remembered the oath which they swore to Moses. Therefore they did no harm to him. But the children of Cush gave many presents to Moses, and sent him from them with great honor. So Moses went forth from the land of Cush, and went home, and ceased to reign over Cush. Moses was 66 years old when he went out of the land of Cush, for the thing was from the Elohim. For the period had arrived which he had appointed in the days of old, to bring forth Israel from the affliction of the children of Ham. So Moses went to Midian, for he was afraid to return to Egypt on account of Pharaoh, and he went and sat at a well of the water in Midian. And the 7 daughters of Reuel the Midianite went out to feed their father's flock. And they came to the well, and drew water to water their father's flock. But the shepherds of Midian came and drove them away. And Moses rose up and helped them, and watered the flock. And they came home to their father Reuel, and told him what Moses did for them. They said, "An Egyptian man has delivered us from the hands of the shepherds. He drew up water for us, and watered the flock." And Reuel said to his daughters, "And where is he? Why have you left the man?" And Reuel sent for him, and fetched him, and brought him home, and he ate bread with him. And Moses related to Reuel that he had fled from Egypt, and that he reigned 40 years over Cush, and that they afterward had taken the government from him, and had sent him away in peace with honor and with presents. And when Raoul had heard the words of Moses, Raoul said within himself, I will put this man into the prison house, whereby I shall win over the children of Cush, for he has fled from them. They took and put him into the prison house, and Moses was in the prison 10 years. While Moses was in the prison house, Zipporah, the daughter of Raoul, took pity on him and supported him with bread and water all the time. All the children of Israel were yet in the land of Egypt, serving the Egyptians in all manner of hard work. And the hand of Egypt continued in severity over the children of Israel in those days. At that time the Elohim struck Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and he was afflicted with the plague of leprosy, from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. Owing to the cruel treatment of the children of Israel, this plague at that time was from the Elohim on Pharaoh, king of Egypt. For the Elohim had listened to the prayers of his people, the children of Israel, and their cry reached him on account of their hard work. Still his anger did not turn from them, and the hand of Pharaoh was still stretched out against the children of Israel. Pharaoh hardened his neck before the Elohim. He increased his yoke over the children of Israel, and embittered their lives with all manner of hard work. When the Elohim had inflicted the plague on Pharaoh, king of Egypt, he asked his wise men and sorcerers to cure him. And his wise men and sorcerers said to him that if the blood of the little children were put into the wounds, he would be healed. Pharaoh listened to them, and sent his ministers to Goshen to the children of Israel to take their little children. And Pharaoh's ministers went and took the infants of the children of Israel from the bosoms of their mothers by force. And they brought them to Pharaoh daily, a child each day. And the physicians killed them, and applied them to the plague. Thus they did all the days. And the number of the children which Pharaoh killed was 375. But the Elohim listened not to the physicians of the king of Egypt, and the plague went on increasing mightily. Pharaoh was 10 years afflicted with that plague. Still the heart of Pharaoh was more hardened against the children of Israel. At the end of 10 years, the Elohim continued to afflict Pharaoh with destructive plagues. And the Elohim struck him with a bad tumor and sickness in the stomach, and that plague turned to a severe boil. At that time, the 2 ministers of Pharaoh came from the land of Goshen, where all the children of Israel were, and went to the house of Pharaoh and said to him, We have seen the children of Israel slacken in their work and negligent in their labor. Excuse me. And when Pharaoh heard the words of his ministers, his anger was set ablaze against the children of Israel greatly, for he was greatly grieved at his bodily pain. And he answered and said, Now that the children of Israel know that I am ill, they turn and scoff at us. Now therefore harness my chariot for me, and I will take myself to Goshen, and will see the scoff of the children of Israel, with which they are deriding me. So his servants harnessed the chariot for him. And they took and made him ride on a horse, for he was not able to ride of himself. He took with him 10 horsemen and 10 footmen, and went to the children of Israel to Goshen. When they had come to the border of Egypt, the king's horse passed into a narrow place, elevated in the hollow part of the vineyard, fenced on both sides, the low plain country being on the other side. The horses ran rapidly in that place and pressed each other, and the other horses pressed the king's horse. And the king's horse fell into the low plain while the king was riding on it. He fell, And the chariot turned over the king's face, and the horse lay on the king. And the king cried out, for his flesh was very sore. And the flesh of the king was torn from him, and his bones were broken, and he could not ride. This thing was from the Elohim to him, for the Elohim had heard the cries of his people, the children of Israel, and their affliction. And his servants carried him on their shoulders, slowly and carefully, and they brought him back to Egypt. And the horsemen who were with him also came back to Egypt. They placed him in his bed, and the king knew that his end was come to die. So Aperinith, the queen, his wife, came and cried before the king, and the king wept a great weeping with her. And all his nobles and servants came on that day, and saw the king in that affliction, and wept a great weeping with him. The princes of the king and all his counselors advised the king to cause one to reign in his stead in the land, whomever he would choose from his sons. The king had 3 sons and 2 daughters, which Aperinith, the queen his wife, had borne to him, beside the king's children of the concubines. And these were their names: the firstborn, Othri; the second, Adikam; and the third, Morion; and their sisters, the name of the elder Bethia, and the other Akuzi. Othri, the firstborn of the king, was an idiot, impetuous, and hurried in his words. But Adikam was a cunning and wise man, and knowing in all the wisdom of Egypt, but of unseemly appearance, thick in flesh, and very short in stature. His height was 1 cubit. And when the king saw Adikam his son intelligent and wise in all things, the king resolved that he should be king in his stead after his death. He took for him a wife, Gedua, daughter of Abilat, and he was 10 years old. She gave birth to him 4 sons. And afterward he went and took 3 wives, and had 8 sons and 3 daughters. And the disorder greatly consumed the king, and his flesh stank like the flesh of a carcass cast into the field in the summertime during the heat of the sun. And when the king saw that his sickness had greatly strengthened itself over him, he ordered his son Adikam to be brought to him, and they made him king over the land in his place. At the end of 3 years the king died, in shame, disgrace, and disgust, and his servants carried him and buried him in the sepulchre of the kings of Egypt in Zoan, Mizraim. But they embalmed him not, as was usual with the kings, for his flesh was putrid, and they could not approach to embalm him on account of the stench. So they buried him in haste. For this evil was from the Elohim to him, for the Elohim had rewarded him evil for the evil which in his days had he done to Israel. And he died with terror and with shame, and his son Adikam reigned in his place. Chapter 77. Adikam was 20 years old when he reigned over Egypt. He reigned 4 years. In the 206th year of Israel's going down to Egypt did Adikam reign over Egypt. But he continued not so long in his reign over Egypt as his fathers had continued their reigns. For Malol, his father, reigned 94 years in Egypt, but he was sick 10 years and died, for he had been wicked before the Elohim. And all the Egyptians called the name of Adikam Pharaoh, like the name of his fathers, as was their custom to do in Egypt. And all the wise men of Pharaoh called the name of Adikam Ahuz. For short, it's called Ahuz in the Egyptian language. Abikam was greatly ugly, and he was a cubit and a span, and he had a great beard which reached to the soles of his feet. And Pharaoh sat on his father's throne to reign over Egypt, and he conducted the government of Egypt in his wisdom. While he reigned, he exceeded his father and all the preceding kings in wickedness, and he increased his yoke over the children of Israel. He went with his servants to Goshen to the children of Israel, and he strengthened the labor over them, and he said to them, Complete your work, each day's task, and let not your hands slacken from our work from this day forward, as you did in the last days of my father. He placed officers over them from among the children of Israel, and over these officers he placed taskmasters from among his servants. And he placed over them a measure of bricks for them to do according to that number, day by day, and he turned back and went to Egypt. At that time the taskmasters of Pharaoh ordered the officers of the children of Israel, according to the command of Pharaoh, saying, Thus says Pharaoh, Do your work each day and finish your task, and observe the daily measure of bricks, diminish not anything. And it shall come to pass that if you are deficient in your daily bricks, I will put your young children in their stead. And the taskmasters of Egypt did so in those days as Pharaoh had ordered them. And whenever any deficiency was found in the children of Israel's measure of their daily bricks, the taskmasters of Pharaoh would go to the wives of the children of Israel, and take infants of the children of Israel to the number of bricks deficient. They would take them by force from their mother's lap, and put them in the building instead of the bricks. While their fathers and mothers were crying over them and weeping when they heard the weeping voices of their infants in the wall of the building. And the taskmasters prevailed over Israel, and the Israelites should place their children in the building, so that a man placed his son in the wall, and put mortar over him, while his eyes wept over him, and his tears ran down on his child. And the taskmasters of Egypt did so to the babes of Israel for many days, and no one pitied or had compassion over the babes of the children of Israel. And the number of all the children killed in the building was 270, some whom they had built on instead of the bricks which had been left deficient by their fathers, and some whom they had drawn out dead from the building. And the labor imposed on the children of Israel in the days of Abikam exceeded in hardship that which they performed in the days of his father. The children of Israel sighed every day on account of their heavy work, for they had said to themselves, Certainly when Pharaoh dies, his son will rise up and lighten our work. But they increased the latter work more than the former. And the children of Israel sighed at this, and their cry ascended to Yahuwah on account of their labor. Yahuwah heard the voice of the children of Israel, and their cry in those days. And Yahuwah remembered to them his covenant, which he had made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And Yahuwah saw the burden of the children of Israel, and their heavy work in those days, and he determined to deliver them. Moses, the son of Amram, was still confined in the dungeon in those days, in the house of Reuel the Midianite. And Zipporah, the daughter of Reuel, supported him with food secretly, day by day. Moses was confined in the dungeon in the house of Reuel for 10 years. And at the end of 10 years, which was the first year of the reign of Pharaoh over Egypt in the place of his father, Zipporah said to her father Reuel, No person inquires or seeks after the Hebrew man, whom you bound in prison now 10 years. So therefore, if it seems good in your sight, Let us send, and see whether he is living or dead." But her father knew not that she had supported him. And Reuel her father answered and said to her, "Has ever such a thing happened, that a man would be shut up in a prison without food for 10 years, and that he should live?" And Zipporah answered her father, saying, "Certainly you have heard that the Elohim of the Hebrews is great and mighty, and does wonders for them at all times. He it was who delivered Abraham from the Chaldeans, and yet is Isaac from the sword of his father, and Jacob from the angel of the Elohim who wrestled with him at the ford of Jabbok. Also with this man he has done many things. He delivered him from the river in Egypt, and from the sword of Pharaoh, and from the children of Cush. So also he can deliver him from famine, and make him live." And the thing seemed good in the sight of Reuel, and he did according to the word of his daughter, and sent to the dungeon to ascertain what became of Moses. He saw, and behold, the man Moses was living in the dungeon, standing on his feet, praying and praising to the Elohim of his ancestors. And Reuel commanded Moses to be brought out of the dungeon. So they shaved him, and he changed his prison garments and ate bread. And afterward Moses went into the garden of Reuel, which was behind the house, and he there prayed to Yahuwah his Elohim, who had done mighty wonders for him. It was while he prayed he looked opposite to him, and there a sapphire stick was placed in the ground, which was planted in the midst of the garden. He approached the stick, and looked, and saw the name of Yahuwah, Elohim of hosts, was engraved on it, written and developed on the stick. And he read it, and stretched forth his hand, and he plucked it like a forest tree from the thicket, and the stick was in his hand. This is the stick with which all the works of our Elohim were performed, after he had created heaven and earth, and all the hosts of them, seas, rivers, and all their fish. And when Elohim had driven Adam from the Garden of Eden, he took the stick in his hand, and went and tilled the ground from which he was taken. The stick came down to Noah, and was given to Shem and his descendants, until it came into the hand of Abraham the Hebrew. And when Abraham had given all he had to his son Isaac, he also gave to him this stick. When Jacob had fled to Paddan Aram, he took it into his hand, and when he returned to his father, he had not left it behind him. Also, when he went down to Egypt, he took it into his hand and gave it to Joseph, one portion above his brothers, for Jacob had taken it by force from his brother Esau. After the death of Joseph, the nobles of Egypt came into the house of Joseph, and the stick came into the hand of Reuel the Midianite. When he went out of Egypt, he took it in his hand, and planted it in his garden. And all the mighty men of the Canaanites tried to pluck it when they endeavored to get Zipporah his daughter, but they were unsuccessful. That stick remained planted in the garden of Reuel until he who had a right to it came and took it. And when Reuel saw the stick in the hand of Moses, he wondered at it, and he gave him his daughter Zipporah for a wife. Wow. That's the end of chapter 77. Wow. All right. Chapter 78. At that time, Baal-Shannon, son of Akbor, king of Edom, died, and was buried in his house in the land of Edom. And after his death, the children of Esau sent to the land of Edom, and took from there a man who was in Edom, whose name was Hadad, and they made him king over them in the place of Baal-Sinan, their king. When Hadad reigned over the children of Edom 48 years, when he reigned, he resolved to fight against the children of Moab, to bring them under the power of the children of Esau, as they were before. But he was not able to, because the children of Moab heard this thing, and they rose up and hurried to elect a king over them from among their brothers. Afterward they gathered together a large crowd, and sent them to the children of Ammon, their brothers, for help to fight against Hadad king of Edom. And Hadad heard the thing which the children of Moab had done, and was greatly afraid of them, and refrained from fighting against them. In those days Moses, the son of Aram in Midian, took Zipporah, the daughter of Reuel the Midianite, for a wife. And Zipporah walked in the ways of the daughters of Jacob, for she was nothing short of righteousness of Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah. And Zipporah conceived, and gave birth to a son, and he called his name Gershom. For he said, I was a stranger in a foreign land. But he circumcised not his foreskin at the command of Reuel, his father-in-law. And she conceived again, and gave birth to a son, but circumcised his foreskin, and called his name Eliezer. For Moses said, Because the Elohim of my fathers was my help, and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. And Pharaoh king of Egypt greatly increased the labor of the children of Israel in those days, and continued to make his yoke heavier on the children of Israel. And he ordered an announcement to be made in Egypt, saying, Give no more straw to the people to make bricks with. Let them go and gather themselves straw as they can find it. Also the number of bricks which they shall make, let them give each day, and diminish nothing from them, for they are idle in their work. And the children of Israel heard this, and they mourned and sighed, and they cried to the Elohim on account of the bitterness of their souls. And the Elohim heard the cries of the children of Israel, and saw the oppression with which the Egyptians oppressed them. And the Elohim was zealous for his people and his inheritance, and he heard their voice, and he resolved to take them out of the affliction of Egypt, to give them the land of Canaan for their possession. And that's the end of chapter 78. Wow. There's a lot happening there. Jeez. Yeah, you guys got any crayons left? Whoa, there's a lot going on there. You sure do learn a lot about old Reuel, huh? He wasn't such a nice guy. In the Bible, he doesn't seem like a bad guy. But according to that, he wasn't so pretty nice. Jeez, threw Moshe in prison for 10 years for nothing, for helping out his daughters to water the flocks. Wow, crazy. And Pharaoh, he was a runt. Wow. His beard was all the way down to his foot, huh? Wow. All right, gang. That's all I got for tonight. I hope y'all enjoyed this reading. It's interesting. What an adventure. Doesn't really go against the Bible anywhere that I can see, but it sure does expand on things. Phew, what a story. All right, gang. Y'all have a great week. And we will see you on Wednesday for our midweek Bible study. And we'll be getting into Joshua. That's good stuff there. That's real good stuff. So if you're interested, come on by and study on Wednesday with us and enjoy your week. Okay? All right. We'll see y'all when we see ya. Shalom.